Let's bring in Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the things.
Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans.
To you especially. You fought in the infantry, right?
I did, yes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Yes, thank you.
And continued service as well. Meanwhile, as Todd was just talking a little bit about Kyle Rittenhouse, you know, those images of him with the rifle on the streets of Kenosha about a year ago, everybody saw him. Now he's on trial for murder. But it looked like yesterday, you know, clearly he's got a self-defense and the prosecution, looking at what they presented yesterday, I don't know if they proved it, if they obviously have not proved it beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's the standard.
Yeah, Steve, it's been a long time since I was a lawyer, and I was such a good lawyer, I had to leave the law and join the Army. But it did not look like a very good day for the prosecution over the last few days when their own witnesses are, in essence, outlining and establishing the factual basis for a self-defense argument. But I want to focus on what Joe Biden said last year, which is calling this young man a white supremacist based on a few seconds of video. As I often say when there's a shooting like this, you shouldn't jump to conclusions based on some video circulating on social media. You should allow all the facts to be collected and make a reasoned judgment. But when Joe Biden called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist last year, it really was just the go-to move of the Democrats. They do this all the time when they're losing an argument on the merits. They don't like parents going to school boards to protest what their kids are learning or school closures, so those parents are called racists.
Yeah.
They don't like that Virginians elected Republicans last week. They condemn Virginian voters as racist. They don't like the United States Constitution or the norms and the customs of the United States Senate, so they call it racist. They are constantly losing arguments with the American people, and then they just revert to name-calling towards their opponents. It's not a sign of a party that is strong or healthy.
Right. I'll add something else to that. They don't want to talk about the border unless they perceive that a Border Patrol agent was on a horse and was treating a Haitian illegal immigrant badly. Then he condemns and wants them fully punished to the extent of the law. And then that story goes away when there's no substance to it. So let's move on to where there is substance that's affecting everybody watching right now, and that's inflation. The president could say whatever he wants. Last Tuesday was a disaster. His bipartisan bill was a train wreck until Republicans rescued the bill in the House. And now we have inflation affecting everyone at a rate we haven't seen since 1990. Are you pleased with the way he's attacking inflation?
No, Brian, of course not. The inflation we've seen is shocking. The reports this week, I think, shocked even some of those who are predicting high inflation rates, even in the Democratic Party, people like Larry Summers. But every Arkansan, every American knows that prices are going up. Every time they go to the gas station to fill up a tank, or increasingly fill up a half a tank, hoping that the prices will come down because they can't fill up their full tank, or go to the grocery store to buy milk for their kids. I understand that a bunch of limousine liberals living in New York or Washington may not worry about these things, but for working class Americans, having to pay an extra $1.50 a week or a gallon for your gas, it's making the budgets tougher and tougher to meet, making it tougher and tougher to bring ends together at the end of the month. And what's Joe Biden want to do? Just shower the economy with trillions of dollars of more spending, continue to pay people not to work. That's only going to drive up costs even further.
People are sick of it. They are tired. They're spending too much money at the grocery store, spending too much money at the gas tank. We saw what happened last Tuesday with the election. And Joe Manchin, there's an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. It says, inflation and building back worse, Joe Manchin has ample reason to kill spending that is harming workers. And Senator Manchin, he tweeted this out. By all accounts, the threat posed by record inflation to the American people is not transitory, like Biden had said, and is instead getting worse. From the grocery store to the gas pump, Americans know the inflation tax is real, and D.C. can no longer ignore the economic pain Americans feel every day. Joe Biden finally yesterday admitted that inflation is a problem. What can be done about this? What can the administration do?
Well, Ainsley, Joe is very right to be concerned about inflation. Joe and I represent states that have a lot in common. We have a lot of working folks who can't sit around their homes and Zoom into work. They have to get in their pickup truck and they have to drive to their work site or to their farm, and they're feeling the pinch in their budget. And I just want to point out too that the high cost of gasoline in this country now, $3.50, $4.50 a gallon, is not an unintended consequence. This is what the Democrats want. They want gasoline to be $4 or $5 a gallon to get people out of their pickup trucks or their SUVs into small electric compact vehicles or bicycles or scooters or subways. This is the design of Joe Biden and the Democrats' policy to shut down oil and gas production in this country. The simplest thing we can do is to encourage more oil and gas production. We can encourage America to continue to be the world's dominant oil and gas producer. That will help bring down prices at the pump.
All right. Senator, thank you very much. We know you're busy today. Thanks for joining us on this Veterans Day.
Yeah, and his Treasury
Thank y'all.
Secretary